Imagine the pitch-black African savanna, 1 million years ago. You are huddled in the dirt. You have no night vision. You have no claws. Every rustle in the grass could be a 400-pound feline waiting to crush your skull. For millions of years, the night belonged to the monsters, until someone struck a spark. We are taught that fire was human history's greatest triumph, the tool that pushed the darkness back, the flame that made us kings of the earth. But that is a comfortable lie, because we, Homo sapiens, were not the first humans to tame the flame. Another species did it long before us, and they paid a terrifying price, because fire didn't just warm them, it mutated their bodies. It rewired their minds with paranoia. And worst of all, it painted a giant target on their backs. 1 million years ago, the Earth was ruled by Homo erectus. They were our ancient cousins, taller, stronger, and built for relentless walking. But they lived in a state of constant, suffocating fear. When the sun went down, they had to climb trees. They tied themselves to branches just to sleep, because the ground at night was a slaughterhouse. Giant hyenas, saber-tooth cats, pack-hunting dogs. If you fell asleep on the ground, you didn't wake up. Then everything changed. Maybe it was a lightning strike on a dry bush. Maybe it was a spark from striking two stones together. But somehow, Homo erectus captured a piece of the sun. They brought the fire down to the ground. For the first time in the history of the planet, a primate didn't run from the smoke. At first, it felt like a miracle. The flames kept the frostbite away. The light pushed the shadows back. But the biggest change happened when meat accidentally fell into the coals. Cooked meat is soft. It takes a fraction of the energy to digest. And this one accident triggered a biological chain reaction that would doom them. Within a few thousand generations, their bodies began to mutate. Because they didn't need massive jaws to chew raw muscle anymore, their teeth shrank. Because they didn't need long, complex intestines to break down raw plants, their stomachs shrank. All that leftover energy was redirected to one place: their brains. Their brains grew massive. They became smarter, more cunning. But here is the terrifying catch. The fire had trapped them. By mutating to eat cooked food, their bodies forgot how to survive on raw food. A Homo erectus without fire would slowly starve, even surrounded by raw meat. They were now biologically tethered to the flame. If the fire went out, they died. But starvation wasn't the most urgent threat. The real danger was lurking just past the edge of the firelight. Fire creates light. Light in a pitch-black savanna is a beacon. It can be seen for miles. But more importantly, fire creates smoke. When Homo erectus cooked bone marrow and meat, the fat dripped into the coals. The scent of roasting fat carried on the wind. It drifted over the hills. It drifted into the caves of the apex predators. Before the fire, humans were mostly ignored, blending into the dark. Now they were ringing a dinner bell. Imagine sitting around that ancient campfire. You feel the warmth on your face. You feel safe. And then you look up. Just beyond the light, where the orange glow meets the absolute black. You see eyes, dozens of them, floating in the dark, reflecting the light of your own fire. The giant predators of the Pleistocene weren't immediately afraid of the flame. They were curious, and they were hungry. The fire didn't repel the monsters. It drew them all to one spot. The humans had accidentally trapped themselves in a tiny circle of light. If they stepped out into the dark, they would be torn apart. If the fire burned low, the eyes would move closer. This constant nightly siege created a new psychological disease, one that is still hiding inside your DNA right now. Think about it. Why are modern humans so afraid of the dark? Why do children instinctively fear the monster under the bed? It's not irrational. It is an evolutionary scar. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors sat in a circle of light, waiting for the dark to kill them. This paranoia fundamentally altered human psychology. They couldn't all sleep at once anymore. If everyone slept, the fire died. If the fire died, the camp was slaughtered. So they invented something completely unnatural: the night watch. Someone had to stay awake. Someone had to feed the flame. Someone had to stare into the abyss and listen for the snapping of twigs. This is where humanity truly changed. Sitting awake in the middle of the night, staring into the flames. The darkness forced them to stay close together. The fear forced them to communicate. To pass the time, to keep themselves awake, they began to make sounds. They began to gesture. They began to share warnings. The fire forced Homo erectus to become deeply, desperately social. Language wasn't born in the bright light of day. It was born in the dark, out of pure terror. But the paranoia took a heavy toll. High stress, sleep deprivation, the constant knowledge that the flame was the only thing keeping them breathing. They became masters of the fire, but they became prisoners to it too. Homo erectus survived like this for nearly 2 million years. They walked out of Africa. They spread into Asia. They carried their embers across frozen mountains and humid jungles. But eventually, their time ran out. The climate shifted. New competitors arrived. Competitors with even bigger brains and sharper spears. Us. Homo erectus slowly vanished from the earth. But they didn't leave empty-handed. They handed the flame over to Homo sapiens, and along with it, they handed over their biological curses. Look at us today. We are totally dependent on cooked food. Our jaws are so small that our teeth crowd together and rot. Our stomachs are so weak that raw meat makes us violently ill. And at night, when the lights go out, we still feel that ancient prickle on the back of our necks. That deeply buried instinct that something is watching us from the shadows. We like to think we conquered the fire. We like to think it was just a tool we picked up and put to work. But the truth is far darker. When Homo erectus struck that first spark, they didn't just burn the brush. They burned their old biology to ashes. They traded their independence for a circle of light. We tamed the fire, yes, but only after the fire tamed us.